Good evening, everyone, or good afternoon. I hope this broadcast finds everyone well. I'm coming to you, returning back. Still new to this YouTube thing and getting my, you know, thoughts out in this capacity and not really knowing who's watching and, just building up my channel. But for the most part, in LA, people know who I am, they know what I'm about, and they know what I do. As far as being a teacher, as far as being a coach, and young man who's been involved in city politics. Um, it's not too much I can say on here about my aspirations uh, to what I want to do here in building up my channel. We'll organically let that play out. Um, but there are a lot of characters out there. I guess that's why I'm pausing and thinking about it, and to see how I may end up in that, similar repertoire or category of YouTubers. But nevertheless, I'm here, and I think it's a good, um, test for me and lesson of growth, I should say, and seeing who will be in favor with some of my opinions. But in any event, I'm here. For those who don't know me, my name is Soray Rogers. I am a teacher from Los Angeles, and specifically, I teach music. I'm also a coach, and all around, just good, pleasant guy trying to do his thing in the neighborhoods. I work with neighborhood councils. It's a system of municipal elected officials on a board. We are a committee. We're composed of committees, and we sit on a board that works directly with City Hall and our city council representatives specifically. Um, I didn't think that I would be taking that direct of a course into politics right after college. But, after the pandemic, um, still trying to achieve my second degree, I basically recognized that I needed to really be much more involved in the community and to a greater capacity. Um, and it's not easy work. It's not. It gets tough, and that's why I'm here today. I wanted to share with you all some of my to go to options when I'm feeling a little bit fatigued or down or stressed about something or overloaded with work. Um, so let's get into it. I got some good notes. I've been thinking about how I want to structure this video for a while, and I may get some imagery in here. We'll see how that goes. I'm not a editor or anything like that, so we'll see how um, that all works out. Um, so yeah, I'm just happy to be here with you all in this journey. So let's get to it. I'm thinking about titling this video "The Power of Meditation" because for myself, and as you see, I just got through coaching a class not too long ago. Great class with toddlers I'm doing this summer, coaching them soccer. The company I work for, we coach soccer, tennis, and golf, and I'm happy to be a part of that. That's why I can, proudly display this shirt even in my private setting at home. So, and doing this video because it's just great work. It's great to be out there with the families and, teaching these kids lessons that will stay with them for the rest of their life. It's no greater impact than that, I think. Other than maybe some of what we're getting ready to talk about. And that is, as I said, gave you a quick foreshadow, the power of meditation. The power of meditation. Last night I actually went to the Lotus Festival out in LA. They do it every year in Echo Park, We have a very large Indian community, Indian American, Indian community here, Hindi community in Los Angeles. And, you know, just all, as everyone knows, LA is, you know, probably one of the most diverse cities and places you want to be in out of any state, from what I'm aware of. And nowadays, that's really what we need. That's our direct line to getting full equality and justice for everyone, is to find the best way to incorporate and represent anyone. And that's why, and I forgot to mention, on all my videos, I'm not, you know, targeting anyone or saying that I'm only making videos for a specific group of people, men or women, no matter where you come from, no matter what you look like. My videos are designed to incorporate a more holistic and fully incorporated worldview. And that's, you know, what led me to this topic, because we all use meditation. We all need a outlet or a release, if you will. And when you think about it, everyone does it. Everyone finds some way to meditate or to find what we call, in the educational world or in the psychiatric world, therapeutics. Where no matter where, you know, you may find that release or therapy, it's doing you good. It's making you realize that your vision or framework, and you know, I'll just go out on a stretch and say your whole self, your holistic, fully metaphysical, individual, personal self goes through the cycles of needing meditation each and every day. I would even go so far to say almost every hour, when you think about it. And a lot of the time we're not thinking about it. A lot of the time it's just stuff that comes naturally to us. I'm a music teacher. You can imagine, and I have my flute right here, I have various instruments. But, you know, honestly, I have a few flutes too, by the way. I carry at least one of my flutes with me no matter where I'm going. In my car, in my backpack. It's just a way for me to get, you know, breathe in air and you know, kind of relax and hear the notes and practice a little bit. But it's really just and I'm using my body, I'm using my skills and knowledge of music to get me there. But it's really just a kind of way for me to, you know, pass by with time. You can consider it a pastime. Music is a huge pastime for a lot of people. And in my field specifically, we have something called music therapy, but it's a still relatively new field. And there's a lot of research that is still going into that to see the actual healing factors to music therapy and its attributes and benefits. But, you know, I mean, with all due respect to the scientists out there, I don't think we really need hard evidence to prove that music is soup for the soul, so to speak. And thinking about it, I discovered a whole list of musicians that use therapy and continue to use meditation, deep meditation practices to get to their comfortable, safe space. You think of one of the most urban and newest musicians and hip hop artists out there, Kendrick Lamar. You know, I'm not too familiar with his music, so just, you know, to be honest, but I try to keep up, and you know, I hear when releases come out, and on social media you get a lot of you know, behind the scenes purview and look and to how these artists get to their overall finished work. So Kendrick Lamar, I think, is a good example of a young man that is using holistic, intrinsic value methods, specifically meditation, to discover himself and therefore give his testimony, give his art out and his medium of choosing, which is specifically hip hop, oration. We go back to Miles Davis as a musician. He used a lot of art therapy. He used a range of therapeutics in his very vast and elongated career in Hollywood and internationally, creating movies and scores for scenes. And in his later years, you would see him being more explicit with his art and really explaining that that's how he found the inspiration to this very new jazz form that he came up with called the avant-garde jazz or minimalism jazz, from in his very beginnings doing hard swing bebop jazz. And this is a man who went through a lot. He endured a lot of discrimination and setbacks in his life, coming from a very strong family, and you can imagine that the therapy for him was needed. The art that he was displaying on many of his album covers, really, you can tell, even when listening to his music, had an impact on him and drove him to the inspiration to finalize and harmonize those notes. But, it's not just the art guys that use this. It's not just the people in the liberal arts that know the power and impact of meditation. And not only that, but its need to be out in the general public consistently. Michael Jordan, is probably one of the greatest examples that you can think of someone who cataclysmically led his team, his home, his town, Chicago, through in the 90s, a very hard time, if you will, being in the inner city, with a lot of information out there, a lot of influx of ideas and mainstream media taking its place. He found a way to, still win and elevate his team to 6 champions. Well, I would like to credit a lot of that with the power of meditation. He has the most famous coach and most winning coach, if I'm not mistaken, in all of NBA history, in Phil Jackson. And what Phil Jackson would do is literally force his team, because he was a former basketball player himself, and he knows what it's like to be on that kind of elongated road trip and to be away from home and traveling and going road, stadium to stadium. He understood that his teams would need to find a way to collectively, here's the key, collectively find alternative solutions to a release mechanism, but also individualize it for each and every teammate to know its power on the court, on their field, in their domain. So basically, the same thing that applied to those musicians and writers and liberal artists that I was explaining applied to the athletes, except they're coming together at one point, right? In the game, they have to come together. They have to understand the holistic group dynamic that's going on when you're going through meditation, so you can understand it individually in your soul, if you will, because that's what this is all about, is getting more deeply and ingrained in understanding your personal self. So when you do that, it makes it much smoother and less rigid to do that when you're in a team setting. And that's why you see a lot of work, places of work and businesses and group think teams and think tanks. They resort to meditation because the jobs understand its impact in team building strategy to have the team work together more cohesively and effectively, and therefore obviously impacting the day of business and the structure of the workforce. So even in the businesses, we see the need and the impact, if you will, of making the power of meditation mainstream, let alone celebrity. And by the way, I'm not someone who focuses on celebrity, focuses on book dropping or lecturing you, but this is my private space, and I'm here for you all. As a teacher, as a young man trying to achieve his masters, and maybe I might do public speaking, but if anything, I just want you guys to share this video and subscribe, of course, and feel free to drop a comment, tell me what you think, tell me if you agree, give me some examples of meditation and these practices that I may discuss on any of my videos, and the power that they have in your life. Share, contribute, chime in. I'm a very open person. You can find me on social media, Facebook, share a lot of content. I love to write, love to do music, and I'm usually finding some immersion between those two. And now that I'm in a public capacity, doing community organization work with City Hall of Los Angeles, I feel that my impact shouldn't have bounds, and I think you all are a part of that. So just because I'm going to keep this video relatively short, and I'm not going to go too heavy into a lot of these topics, but just briefly, because a lot of people already know what meditation entails, and a lot of the time we think of yoga, we think of Buddhism, we think of the very traditional aspects of meditation and therapeutics and our religious aspects in people's lives. But and that's important, don't get me wrong, but that's where the mainstream can come in too, and point out that you don't have to be from any particular group or sect of thinking to understand the impact of meditation, because again, as I said in the beginning, this is all about the individual knowing themselves and how they interact with the larger world. We all have a consciousness. We all have a spirit force that drives us to do, things that are bigger than our normal selves or the normal work that we want to do. Creating YouTube videos, writing, doing music, going to a flea market. I don't know. We can find meditative practices in a range of aspects, but I think it is important for me to recognize that there are very concrete forms of these practices in meditations, particularly in yoga. And I'm going to focus in on that just a little bit in these last 4 or 5 minutes, because those are what I recognize to be the main ways that people immediately understand yoga. I started off doing yoga in college. I wasn't, really into it, but it was something that stayed with me because particularly I did martial arts my entire life, and a lot of those movements and philosophical, disciplinary aspects relate and cross over from martial arts to the various forms of yoga, including Kundalini Yoga, Egyptian Yoga, Yin Yoga, and Vinyasa Yoga. Vinyasa Yoga focuses on, that's the typical kind of mainstream yoga that you see on the TV with the, bunch of, usually women in the class, and they're doing stretches and poses and, very fast movement, if you will, with the whole collective. And, it's very structured and making sure you're going to get through that class. And it's routine based. That's the main thing I can say about that form of yoga. It's very routine and it's very athletic based. Yin Yoga is, Eastern Asian based yoga that focuses on a lot of, and when you go to parks, you see a lot of, groups doing it. And, they're focused on breathing and making sure that you are internally poised to get through the event of movements with the group. That's why it's called Yin Yoga, because it's not about speed or strength or even getting the moves fully correctly all the time. It's more about maintaining that group dynamic. Egyptian Yoga focuses a lot on the family. It focus in those poses, those moves that you will find in Egyptian yoga are what we call Mayat yoga. Internalizes the spiritual through here's the key, traditional aspects of the family as one. So it's very similar to Yin Yoga, but the structure and the moves are very traditional, and they really aren't replaced because they have direct mythological and spiritual connections. And that's really what you will see in Kundalini Yoga, which is also known as Sanskrit Yoga. That's what I practiced in college. It is spiritually based, and the moves are related to the animals, and they each have actually two names: the spiritual aspect to the move and the formal, pose that you're doing, or the way you're imitating an animal, if you will. So I just wanted you guys to just kind of see what that's about, and to recognize that, these practices are always developing. They're always good for the soul, as I said. And, there are a range of people, not just celebrities, but, leaders and scholars alike, and community activists that resort to this power. I think about when I was playing basketball in high school, we had Jordan Farmar, who came out and explained his need to do the yoga practices and deep meditative practices in between games. And he did a whole video about that, and they won championships in the Lakers. We talked about Michael Jordan. We talked about his coach, Phil Jackson, that used it with all his teams, including the Lakers that Jordan Farmar was on with Kobe Bryant, the great Kobe Bryant, who was one that was not shy about explaining his need to get out on his own and resort to deep meditative practices. We see that a lot right now. Madonna, Beyonce. Now, the one thing, and I'll end with this and say about making meditation and these deep holistic practices mainstream, is we have to be careful about the exploitation. And I think was the reason why I immediately wanted to jump on this video, is because there are times where it can get wacky or out of sync. In other words, what I'm trying to say is the pure intention of wanting to just clear your mind and be a better person for the world and for yourself, more importantly, is kind of losing its place. It's more of, I want to create this look for the world instead of I want to be a part of the world, and I want to understand myself to be stronger and better and more capable in this world. And I'm not an expert, so I don't have any one solution for that, but I will say, we could start by just sharing the personal aspects in history to why one gets involved with these practices in the first place. And the mainstream aspect will handle itself. And reaching to the correct people that it needs to be reached to, and those who need to receive it. These things are important. They can change the world. Think about Nelson Mandela, who spent 27 years in prison. I couldn't do it. Martin Luther King Jr., who definitely, was not all the time vocal about using these practices, but it's quite evident through his work and mentors and who he looked up to, and even the way he gave his sermons, that these facets and stones of humanity will greatly impact you, So I'll just end by sharing this. And like I said, I'm not going to always be book dropping, but I got this book when I was quite young. I've been in the athletics for quite some time. I've always loved to read. I've always been a bookworm. I honestly don't even remember how I got this book. Somebody must have given it to me when I was a kid, or I might have picked it up. It's some book giveaway or something. I don't know. However I got it here, more than likely in downtown LA. And when I'm reading it, it's 10, 11, 12 years old. I probably didn't understand everything, but this is the guy who wrote it. He was one of the leaders of the Krishna consciousness movement, and that is a religious philosophy that's very close to Hinduism, but this founder, Swami Prabhupada, I'll show you his picture again. In other words, this is the guy who made meditation and these practices mainstream the way we know about them today. Because when you go over there, particularly in Eastern philosophy, this is a way of their life. This is as normal to them as us in America playing basketball and playing baseball. And I think we're pushing to understand the impact of, group dynamics and group spirituality and deep meditative practices. So I think I shared a lot, and when we think about these performances performers and the way they bring it, I think we could demand a lot and expect a lot out of them, because as great as these practices are, we have to continue to push them and show how they affect the greater good. So thank you all for hearing me out, and feel free to chime in. Have a great day.